All right. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining today's Wednesday Wise webinar. My name is Sydney Konahia with the International Franchise Association, and we have a great 60 minutes lined up for you all today. Before we get started, I just want to touch on two things. Today's webinar will be recorded, and a copy of the recording or a link to the recording, along with a link to the slide deck, will be emailed out to all registrants and attendees post-webinar. And if you have any questions for Matthew, please feel free to add them to the chat or questions box, and he will address them towards the end of the session. Today's topic is empowering every franchisee, a persona-based approach to scalable digital marketing, and it's brought to us by Constant Contact. Here to provide today's discussion is Matthew Montoya, Senior Manager of Indirect Customer Ops and Success at Constant Contact. Thank you, Matthew, for joining us, and thank you again to Constant Contact for sponsoring today's Wednesday Wise webinar. I will now
Well,
turn it over to you to get us started.
well, thank you, Sydney. Thanks for having me. Hey, everybody. Happy Wednesday. I'm very excited to join you. Yeah, that's my name and my ridiculous title. All that ridiculous title means is that I'm a subject matter expert in constant contact, digital marketing, and become a pretty strong subject matter expert in the franchise marketing space. My bona fides, I have been at Constant Contact now. Today is my 14th anniversary at Constant Contact. I just learned that today. And in terms of franchise marketing, I have been involved in franchisee level marketing at Constant Contact since 2015. And I have a feeling I'm going to be preaching to the choir today. My experience working with thousands of franchise systems is this idea of personas. As soon as I start to get into it, I always see light bulbs of recognition go off. And the pain that these divergent personas cause, the upset stomachs they can cause in the franchise space. And hopefully we have no franchisees here because I'm going to be somewhat throwing some under the bus. Um, it's probably felt by you. So let's quickly go through the agenda. I'm going to be talking about these three personas and exploring the challenges and getting them to buy in. They're three different groups of people, and how you get them to buy into your marketing efforts is going to differ based on those personas. I'm going to share with you what Constant Contact has learned. I'm going to give you some bona fides on that as well, on a persona-based marketing plan for your organization, how to implement that in terms of onboarding for those new franchisees to your system. And this is brought to you by Constant Contact. I've got the logo on my shirt. You can see it there. I'll talk about how Constant Contact actually solves all of this pain, but we have a Q&A, as was mentioned. Please keep your questions coming in for Sydney, my friend in the background at Constant Contact, and we will tackle those questions. I will hold the questions until the end. They might answer some as they go. But just a little bit, I promise you some bona fides. So the first bona fide, you likely statistically know Constant Contact. We've been in business for 31 years. We invented this idea of email marketing as a software solution 31 years ago. And there are benefits to that. There are actually challenges to that. And I'm going to be transparent with you. I'm going to talk to you about the challenges we have. But let's talk about the benefits. One is because we've been in business 31 years doing email marketing, we are the best at it. We have the best deliverability rate in the industry, 97%. I just got a report that it's now up to 98%. What does that mean? It means if you send emails through Constant Contact, it's going to get to the inbox. And what is the point of doing email marketing if it doesn't get seen, right? Why invest in a persona-based approach and develop content and monitor KPIs if it doesn't get delivered? No one can beat our deliverability rate. Another benefit is we know how to make email marketing simple. And that's also a little bit of the challenge that I'll talk about in a second. But we built our industry, our business on an easy to use, intuitive platform that anybody can pick up, primarily focused on the small business. Well, if we think about franchisees, that's the target audience, right? Lastly, we've built our legacy 31 years on fantastic free customer support. And when we call it partnering, when a franchise system partners with Constant Contact, good goes to great because we have dedicated partner support in addition to our fantastic, always free customer support, although your franchisees would then be considered partners. But the challenge, we've been in business 31 years. Hurrah. Good for you, Constant Contact. The challenge is that while you might be familiar with Constant Contact, you may not be familiar with the franchise level solutions we have. We have that easy to use intuitive tool for the franchisee and then systems on top to help the franchisor. The additional bona fide is this report. We partnered with our good friends, the International Franchise Association, and did a survey of 503 marketing decision makers working for franchisors, 239 of them, and franchisees. We polled 264 franchisees throughout the US and Canada to build a report. We are going to get a link out to that report, but you can see it right there, constantcontact.com/state of franchise. Between friends, circle of trust, preaching to the choir, I don't think there's anything in this report you don't know. Now, I encourage you to read it because that might help you in your seat convince decision makers of things that they may not be aware of or myopic on. And it might even give you reassurance that I'm not the only person in a franchise system with this particular challenge. The survey was done in January of 2025, and everything I'm going to share with you comes out of what we found in that report. The reality is, we got back from the report what we thought we'd get back from the report. From working with franchises for so long, we started to see patterns that I'm about to share with you, and the idea of these personas. What the report reflected back to us is, yes, indeed, there is a challenge in the franchise system space. So, what are these personas? Let's break this down a little bit. So, if we're real with each other, if we're transparent with each other, and I'm not telling you something you don't know here, not every franchisee is a marketing pro, right? Some are eager, some are experienced, some understand the value of digital marketing, some understand algorithms with social media and paid advertising and monitoring KPIs and web traffic. They get it, right? They're bought in. Perhaps they are a professional marketer who have then gotten into franchise systems. That's probably your edge case, right? For some of the other franchisees, not so much the experts, and that's okay, but it does mean we can't treat them all the same. To truly scale the franchise system, you got to flex a little bit. Give them the tools and support to match their skill set, their comfort level, while still keeping your brand protected and your messaging on point. And those are the secret words, right? Brand control, message protection, on top of things like cadence and monitoring KPIs so you can pivot. Well, that can be easy to do for the franchisee that understands marketing, but more difficult if we start to scale out towards those that don't understand marketing. So, our learning objectives today, here's what we're going to be working with today. First, we'll break down the three core franchise personas or franchisee personas. You probably know them, and you're probably, as I get deeper into some of them, you're going to go, yep, that's Bob. Yep, that's Susan. Yep, that's Larry. We'll get into each one needs, where they shine, and where they struggle. Then we'll map out how to meet each persona with the right marketing mix, cadence, content, and control. You'll see how to scale your marketing across the network without sacrificing brand standards. And finally, we'll look at how tools like Constant Contact can make it possible to support every franchisee, no matter their skill level, from a single unified platform. So let's unveil what the three personas are. Again, you're probably going to be able to map them to actual franchisees in your system. The three personas we have consistently seen in our legacy time at Constant Contact, our 31 years experience of helping franchises, franchise systems, and franchisees fall into the following categories. First up is the do-it-yourself group, the do-it-themselves group. They're confident. They might be a little territorial. They want full control and minimal influence. But you know what? They get it. They understand how marketing works. And those are going to be your true believers, those that drank the Kool-Aid, those that you give them brand guidelines and off they run, always doing a great job growing their business, understanding the relationship of quality marketing with quality review of reporting is going to help them make more money. More thick is going to be the middle group. The larger segment of most franchise system franchisee personas is going to be the do it with me crowd. They understand the value. They read the guidelines, but they always seem to be a little trepidatious. They need guidance. This group is especially coachable and collaborative with the right tools. And then the persona that I said you'll probably go, yep, that's this person, to do it for me. These are going to be the folks that are running their business. They are not focused on marketing, no matter how many guidelines and instructions and webinars and trainings and conferences you give them, they just don't get it. Now, that's not to give them a hard time. Like I said, they may have bought into the franchise system because they really believe in what you're selling, what you're doing, what you're offering. They may be skilled salespeople, they may be skilled business people, but they may not get marketing. Within this group, there could be those that just will never do it. Now, when we say that, that could be both circumstantial, they're really busy, but it could also just be, I don't want the franchise taking away all my leads. I don't want them pushing all the contacts to franchise-owned stores. I'm sure you've heard stories like this. Each persona needs a different approach. We treat them all the same, we risk disengagement and brand inconsistency. So let's break these down even further. The do it themselves, right? They would be considered the do it yourself. They're proactive, often tech savvy, often confident in their marketing chops. They don't want hand holding, they want freedom with perhaps some guardrails. But there is a risk. The risk is if you give them too much freedom, they'll go rogue. If you don't give them the right tools, they may go off the rails. To keep them aligned, give them those brand approved templates, self-serve dashboards, access to campaign performance metrics, and then let them run free, right? These are going to be those that always do what you want them to do because they understand how marketing can result in filling that funnel. Constant Contact makes it easy for them. They get the freedom they want while you can keep the brand where it needs to be. The bigger persona is going to be those that need some help, right? They're willing learners. They want to do the right thing, but they're not always sure how. And this can be based on the tenure of their franchise agreement. What I've often seen in the franchisees is they want to do the right thing, but let's be frank, dependent on the franchise system, onboarding might be just a lot for them to synthesize, right? There's just a lot of information, and we're going through onboarding, and we're saying here's where you get your uniforms, and here's where you get your hard goods, and here's where you access your website. No, here's a email marketing solution. A lot to absorb. So we see that, especially based on tenure, this group definitely needs a lot of help. But there can be experienced people in your franchisee space that just need more handholding. They're unsure. They're maybe a little less tech savvy. They get overwhelmed with technology. They get overwhelmed with marketing terminology. This group needs some help. Now, the risk is that their campaigns, if they try and they don't really have guidance, can stall. They can fail. They may not see the results that they deserve. They kind of give up. They feel like maybe they did a bad job, or sometimes they can blame the franchise system and say, you didn't support me enough. The win is they are coachable with the right support. They can become power users, and they could even move up into that space of the do it themselves crowd. You want to think with this group of co-branded templates, some light training, and maybe approval workflows, especially for those that are new to the franchise system where you quite frankly don't know what persona they're going to map into. I've seen plenty of franchise systems get new franchisees that go get the brand guidelines, and then off they're putting emojis on top of the logo, changing the colors, putting in some questionable content into their email. You may have some trepidation on, especially new to the franchise system franchisees, because you don't know what persona they're going to fit into and what they're going to do. So perhaps even if they are eventually going to be those do-it-themselves franchisee, you may want early on to have some guardrails on them to see what kind of content they produce. This is more about a partnership, not micromanagement. Well, speaking of micromanagement, let's go into the last persona. This is the one that causes the franchise systems that I talk to, that I coach, that I get into leveraging Constant Contact to help their system, is this group. Usually not the largest group, but this group can be real challenge, right? This group is hands off, either by intent or by design. They're focused on operations or whatever it might be, just not on marketing. They're never going to log in. They're never going to attend a webinar. They're never going to build a campaign. And the risk is nothing goes out, or even worse, something bad goes out. But to me, the bigger risk is that there is this disconnect. And again, I don't know who's attending today. I don't know what franchise system you are. Perhaps I'm not describing you. But what I have seen in other franchise systems, large and small, legacy and not, is that this group can cause a challenge in that not only something bad doesn't go out, nothing goes out. And yet who's to blame for the lower sales, right? So I'm not making the President's Club. I'm not making the Gold Club. Larry's getting all the leads and I'm not getting anything. And me, and it's your fault, marketing team at the franchise, right? Well, that's one of the challenges. Another is that if you get enough of these type of characters starting to coalesce into kind of an organization where they're chattering amongst each other through a Facebook group or through a text or Slack channels, right? Then you start to end up with this challenge with a capital C, because now once this group goes rogue, that the franchise is not doing enough for us, then you start to lose more than just brand control. So with this group, you want to have fully managed campaigns that still allow some light local touches. And whatever marketing goes out, again, somewhat dependent on your franchise system, but whatever goes out obviously needs to push traffic back to them, right? So you're doing it for them, but the traffic is obviously being pushed to their site, their social, their store, their phone, etc. They are feeling the results of localized marketing while it was still done at headquarters. Now, when I talk to franchise systems, I'm, oh, we do this. Yeah, we send it through our corporate account. Well, the challenge then is it can cause this little bit of a disconnect of like, who are you doing this for? And then you have to produce reports for them and you have to produce bona fides that this actually, was benefiting them locally. With a solution like Constant Contact, if they want to, can go in and see the results immediately from KPIs on the work you did for them. So they're feeling that local result while still having the ability to dig into the KPIs. None of that's the real challenge. This is the real challenge, right? Getting that buy-in. So let's shift to what you need as a franchisor. First, brand consistency, right? Preaching to the choir. What did the franchise buy into? They brought in your brand, right? And that's what they had. Brand equity is what they bought into. Every message should feel like it's on brand no matter who sends it. Duh. I know you as marketers, as franchise system professionals, you know that. Not all franchisees do, but we'll get to that in a minute. Next, visibility. You got to know what's going out, when, why, how. All right. There's a lot of especially newer franchise systems who they let the franchisees go get their own solutions. They're giving them brand guidelines. You have no idea what's going out until you get a call from somebody that's angry. Hey, this local franchisee of yours said this, that, or the other. Or you get to see an email or social post where they've somewhat altered your brand. That's never a good feeling, right? So you don't have that automated visibility to see what they're doing. You also need tools that scale, but let you retain control no matter what persona the franchisee falls into. That balance, and there's that word today because it's going to come up pretty heavily as I move on. The balance is everything. You'll need efficient onboarding. You'll need centralized workflows that save time and headaches along the way. Ideally, you might want one platform that supports all three personas, not a patchwork of tools. Now, if you are looking at my logo on my shirt, you probably tell who does this, and we're the only ones that do. And most importantly, franchisee adoption. I have talked to so many franchise organizations. I'm not going to name names, but I've talked to so many franchise organizations that procure a marketing solution for the franchise, right? For the franchisor. And it is as advanced as a marketer would need with lead tracking and lead scoring and all sorts of automation and all the latest bells and whistles. Well, that's great for the franchise, headquarter marketing, nationalized, worldwide marketing, but it can be a challenge if you offer a solution to a franchisee that's over their heads, especially for that do it for me or that do it with me franchisee model. Yeah, the do it themselvers, the ones with the marketing background that drank the Kool-Aid, maybe they can operate a solution that's a little more complex, but not often, especially as we go to the other end of that scale. I've talked to so many franchise systems to procure a tool that the franchisees never adopt or rarely adopt because it was too complicated, required too much training. And most franchisees, they are busy, right? They're selling the things you sell, they're selling your brand. And so they may not have time to do deep dive training and education of really complex tools, and that can backfire as well. I have worked with franchise systems that had a franchisee revolt. They revolted against their CMO. They have revolted against their CEO and marketing leaders because they got a tool that they were paying for, at least partially, that they couldn't use or felt they couldn't use. And that can be a real challenge. So, what do franchisees want? Well, they want first and foremost results, right? No matter how they come, they want results. They want to know that the brand is working for them. Now, that can come from national ad campaigns, of course, but that's sometimes not localized enough for their needs. They want the marketing that brings in their customers, and they want to feel that experience that you're procuring leads, prospects, and repeat business of their customer base locally. They also want simplicity. They want that tool that's easy to use, not just another job for them. They expect a clear return on investment. If they're putting time or budget into this, they need to see it pay off. So if you just joined, maybe you didn't hear my introduction. All of this data, while I'm sharing a lot of information about what Constant Contact can do, I don't want this to feel like a sales pitch because this is all coming from hundreds of franchisors and franchisees that we surveyed in a study built and sent out by our friends at IFA. Last thing I want to say is that you want to offer them some level of control, some level of buy-in, because if it's maybe sometimes as easy as just tweaking a headline, a subject line, maybe an image they feel like they have a little bit more control while you're still giving them the guidance. And you can probably tell from this slide, we're talking about that persona, that balance, right? You meet these needs, you're going to get better adoption, better performance, and fewer complaints. So this balance, this challenge, this next slide is the one where I've had franchise systems almost do a, not a really a hallelujah. What would be the opposite of that? Like, yep, that's us. The challenge in the franchise space is that you all, some of you may not, but most of you live in a franchisee balance. You need to give some control. They need to have buy-in or else they tune out and they're not sending out effective marketing. You give them too much control and some are going to go off the rails. They're going to go off the ranch. They're going to go do their own thing. You're going to face a PR backlash. You may not be getting the marketing reach and fill the funnel the way that you want them to. This balance is everything, right? And you put too much on one side of this balance and you can run into challenges. So let's go to one side of the balance, right? We're doing everything for them. Well, if we're doing everything for them, well, then you can run into issues where people start talking behind your back and saying, hey, I'm spending this much money on my marketing spend. I'm not seeing the results, or they got me a tool I can't use. What in the world's going on? I'm not happy with this. You start to get these pools of people, right? If we over control, they don't feel like they have any engagement. They don't have a buy-in to the solution or the results. You give that too much freedom, and now you're starting to hurt brand equity, which ultimately hurts both your franchise system, but it can hurt other franchisees, right? People start saying or doing things in the marketing that's off brand. That could have pretty dramatic results, both in market share and just general perception of your brand. And I know I'm preaching to the choir here, but what has usually not come up is that you're not alone. Hundreds and hundreds, sometimes thousands of franchise systems that I've talked about this kind of problem with, they'll, yeah, that's us. But the problem is, how do you solve that? So let's talk about how to solve it. Persona-based best practices for you. So most likely you're in the marketing side of your business and you understand why marketing, right? You understand CTAs and KPIs and things like that, right? But to your franchisees. So what we've learned both through the study that I described to you, commissioned by Constant Contact and the IFA, reiterated what we've learned at Constant Contact, which is I'm going to use the word advanced marketing techniques, but quite frankly, there's nothing advanced in what I'm about to share with you, but they can be advanced to a franchisee, especially dependent on their persona. So, segmentation, right? If you're a marketing professional, you understand why segmentations matter, but franchisees, it might go over their head. Obviously, segmentation is a great way, the way to boost engagement, but most franchisees don't even understand the concept. I've spent plenty of time working with franchisees for them to understand that not every prospect is the same. Not everyone's interested in the same product, the same service, the same solution. Not everyone lives in the same area, has the same budget constraints. Need to send out marketing that's targeted in this day and age. Preaching to the choir, targeting is everything, right? Well, they may not understand that kind of sophistication. Not about blasting everyone, obviously, with the same message. It's about relevancy, relevancy, relevancy. And I've seen plenty of franchisees produce marketing that are anything but relevant. Given their own devices, they're creating really long emails that are off topic, that are meant for multiple audiences with too many calls to action, too many images. In today's day and age, where people spend an average on the maximum of 9 seconds in an email, that can really hurt the brand, hurt the business, hurt the return on investment, right? I've also seen plenty of organizations that send out social media posts with no clear call to action, no purpose, no dedicated relevance to their audience. And then even more scary, I've seen franchisees do postings, but then never respond to any of the responses. They're just leaving those there, right? And never mind talking to a franchisee about things like algorithms in social media or paid advertising. That can be even harder depending on the persona. Now, the ones that understand this are the do-it-yourselfers, right? They can run with the idea of segmentation either through your CRM or through a tool like Constant Contact. You can get even better when a CRM is connected to Constant Contact because we have segmentation tools that take data and carve it up however the franchise or franchisee wants. The do it with them crowd, they're going to need a little bit more help and guidance. Things like trainings, webinars, conferences, on-sites that can help, cheat sheets, one-sheeters, playbooks. What they really need to do is see how segmentation actually affects their bottom line. What I generally do with the do it for me, or I'm sorry, the do it with me crowd is I bring relevancy into their lives. You know, you go on to Amazon, you look up a product. What happens when you go on social media a few minutes later because you didn't buy the product? Well, there's the product. Well, they need to understand that's how audiences look at content now. They usually kind of understand it when it's contextualized to their world. Honestly, it kind of been bad mouthing the do it for me crowd, the ones that'll never do the marketing. Well, you kind of have some help there because they're never going to produce marketing. So with that group, you can kind of run segmentation as you see fit. Obviously, you just need to make sure that it's bringing that data and bringing that traffic back to them. But since they're never going to operate marketing initiatives, you kind of have free reign in how you're going to segment their content as long as you keep it relevant. As David Fisher down here at the bottom says, the more specific your message, obviously, the better results. Segmentation isn't extra work, it's critical work. But given the personas of franchisees, that can be hard to get across. And getting that consistent branding, obviously, you know why it's important. It builds trust. It expands your brand equity. It expands your brand footprint, right? People understand your organization more broadly. Data is clear. 35% of organizations saw 10 to 20% revenue growth just by keeping on brand, by utilizing tools that help them stay on brand. You see a lift right now. We can imagine the reverse. And I have worked with a very large legacy franchise system where brand consistency was a real problem. Each franchisee was deputized to go do their own thing with no oversight. I'm never going to share the name of this organization. It is locked into my brain trust here, my brain vault. But I will say that their brand equity has taken a very large hit. A very well-known brand that isn't as very well-known anymore because they gave all the control away. In a franchise system, obviously, all of this is easier said than done. So rogue content, off-brand edits, political content, content that's going to drive a lot of negative behavior. Well, that's going to be a real pain point, right? That's going to cause a lot of anxious stomachs. Do-it-yourselfers, give them brand-approved content, templates, maybe some editing control based on your flexibility into giving them that control. Maybe not total freedom, right? Give them the templates, allow them to do some pieces so they still have that localized buy-in. They feel like that they still have some control. To do it with them, work together. Shared content calendars, approval workflows where you can have eyes on the content they're developing before it can be sent out. To do it for me's, you get to take the wheel on this group, right? You get to you build the creative, you send it out at the cadence you see fit to the segment you see fit. Obviously, you want to just make sure that that's going to push back to that local franchisee. In this case, again, the do it for me crowd is going to actually help you with keeping your brand consistent because they are not doing any of the work. It's not about control for the sake of control. It's about protecting the brand while empowering the franchisee network. Here's an oldie but a goodie, mobile optimization. We're still talking about this in 2025. Well, if franchisees don't understand the impact of mobile optimization and they're given their own devices, meaning not a mobile phone, but they're given complete freedom. They may not understand how important a mobile audience is, right? Obviously, 70% of your audience is likely seeing your content on a phone. Now, Constant Contact's mobile responsive. Anything you might be using or looking at is mobile responsive, right? I'm preaching to the choir, and I got to stop. I got to come up with a new term today. You all understand that. Where the challenge can become is mobile content, right? Making sure that it's bite size, it's digestible in a small amount of time. If a franchisee gets too much control, even if it's mobile responsive, they're not thinking about that critical keeping the content short, bite-sized, targeted, segmented, keeping your CTAs limited, not overwhelming people with too much information. They don't understand that kind of stuff, right? Well, with the do-it-yourselfers, those that are going to do a great job giving them those guidelines, letting them understand the impact of a mobile first strategy, they're going to get it right. And then of course there's tools like Constant Contact that can show them the mobile version before they send it out. They do it with me crowd, the persona of franchisees who want help. Well, you can provide those mobile friendly templates with the content already in them. Make it foolproof. Maybe even again require them to go through an approval workflow that's built into a tool like Constant Contact. The do it for me's, well, because you get to handle everything, you're doing a mobile first strategy. Ideally, you're getting the kind of results that they want and deserve because you are knowledgeable of this kind of stuff. Mobile optimization shouldn't be optional. Can't put that into their world. You need to control that as much as you can while still keeping all of your franchisees engaged. Localized content, another duh. Yeah, I know you get this. Franchisees may not necessarily get this, although they tend to think they do. Well, obviously, localized content is going to boost engagement because, well, it feels personal and relevant to the audience receiving it, but it also makes the franchisee feel like you're paying attention to them because you're talking about them. The challenge is how do you keep your brand voice consistent while still giving some local experience to your content? Additionally, how do you procure that local content and keep on top of it? Well, it's going to all differ based again on the personas. The do it myself, the do it for the do it yourselfers. Give them some editable sections, maybe some guidelines and templates where they should put in some localized information, maybe absorbing some URLs from local content or other relevant pieces that might reflect a local experience in the marketing. You just don't want to go too heavy on it in terms of the control you're providing them because they may push back. To do it with me, prompt them, get testimonials, get localized content. If they're doing trade shows, they're doing conferences, they have fairs or something of that nature, try to get that content in and teach them why they'd want to localize their content when it's relevant. Again, still probably having approval workflows where you can see what they're producing before they send it out. To do it for me, well, you get to handle it all. The challenge here, though, is getting that local content in, right? Where are you going to be procuring that? Now, maybe the do it for me crowd can at least help you by giving you some content occasionally and then you get it out. Now, with this group, what I have found is that if you start doing the marketing for them, but it's pushing local traffic back and they're seeing and feeling the results of the marketing you're doing, you might get more buy-in. You say, you know what? Now let's take this up a notch and let's put in a little piece about your city, a little piece about the goings on in your community or whatever constituency is. And let's see how this works for you. You might get a little more buy-in when they get the first effects of a coordinated campaign that you're running for them with that local flavor. Always a bit of a trade-off between creativity and control. The real win is collaboration here. And franchisees, they're asking for this. They're asking for this. 95%, according to our study, again, we polled hundreds of franchisees, say 95% say that localized marketing support from headquarters would be extremely helpful. When you enable local relevance and protect your brand, that's the secret sauce. That's where everybody wins. Cadence. You get it, right? You want to have a regular marketing cadence. Franchisees, and again, it depends on the persona. It's enough to get them to send one email, right? And then it's 6 months before their next. It's, 3 quarters between social media postings. You give them too much control, and if they don't do a good job, they're basically burning through all the equity that they got from their subscribers and their followers, right? Obviously really important to have a regular cadence, but franchisees, time's tight, they're busy, they may not really think through the importance of a cadence. So the do it themselves crowd, the do it yourselfers, you can employ things like calendar tools, reminders to keep them on track. They're going to follow those kind of rules because they get it. The do it with me's, well, maybe set up some automated drip campaigns that run for them but still produce localized results. And the do it for me's, just run it all. Run automated drip campaigns directly for them without their involvement. You have the ability through a tool like Constant Contact to mix and match these kind of drip campaigns that you can deposit directly into their account for them or with them. As Brad from Wellington Brewery said, it's not just about the sale, it's about building the relationship. And obviously, having a regular cadence is what helps keep your business top of mind and also strengthen those relationships. As Ricky nails it, email reflects who you are. Consistency builds credibility. Cadence isn't a task, and I know all of you know that. It's a trust builder. CTAs. I have seen so many franchisee emails. Now, this is before they started using Constant Contact. So many franchise emails without a CTA. No link to click on, no call to action, no purpose for the email. I just want to get the message out. Well, how successful was the marketing if you can't gauge the results, right? So, obviously, a strong call to action going to be very important to getting that click through, right? You want to have that behavior, but it's often overlooked by franchisees that get too much autonomy. Many franchisees either forget to include one, add too many, or don't even think to add them at all. The do-it-yourselfer franchisees, give them content blocks with built-in CTAs. Lessen the guesswork. You'll get better results. The do-it-with-them franchisee persona, set up workflows that include a quick CTA checkup so you have eyes on what they're linking to or if they're linking at all. The do it for me crowd, well, because you own it, you have the ability to do split testing, tweak the CTAs, and optimize them across campaigns while still pushing that localized traffic back to them. Goal is obviously clarity. Telling people exactly what to do next is a key piece to especially email marketing, and so many franchisees leave it out. When it comes to social media, it's not just a promotion, it's a conversation. Social media isn't just a megaphone, right? You want to make sure you're building a relationship with people on social media and ideally moving them down the funnel from maybe social media, then into email marketing subscription, then maybe into text marketing subscription, going to websites, optimizing that prospect, right? My experience with franchisees, context experience with franchisees, is that social media is where they generally gravitate first when given tools or even on their own. They're used to posting, they kind of understand the idea, but obviously they're very can be very inconsistent on social media. They cannot be monitoring social media. They may not be in the right place for their business. They don't know these things. You can give them guidelines, but if they don't read the guidelines or if they're too busy to even bother, kind of what's the point in social media, right? Too often, according to our study, franchisors say that franchisees send mostly promotional promotional discounts, things of that nature through their social media without having any kind of interaction or monitoring the interaction of those promos. Just solely doing price point value, price point value, price point value, and maybe discount is just not producing the kind of community that social media is really strong at. And if somebody is not at a particular point in the right buying cycle, and then it's going to become irrelevant content. They're not going to see the content unless you buy social media, right? You all know this. They don't know that. Do-it-yourselfers. They, give them themes, give them hashtags, leverage a tool that you have eyes on. They can schedule, they can monitor. They've drunk the Kool-Aid. They understand how this works. To do it with me's, well, offer a menu of posts that they can choose from, already pre-built with images, hashtags, things of that nature. Do it for me? Well, because you own it, you get to run it. Just like the other marketing vehicles, obviously you just want to try to push that local traffic back. Obviously, social is not a standalone channel. It's best when you're doing omni-channel marketing. Automation. You probably all love automation as marketers, right? I know I do. It saves you time. Well, it can save franchisees time too, but most franchisees aren't sophisticated enough to set up their own automated marketing. Don't know where to begin, may not even understand the strategy behind not just setting up automation, but maybe multiple automated drip campaigns. Getting them to set up one might be hard enough. Never mind different kind of personas, different kinds of segments, and different kinds of behavioral automation. The do-it-yourselfers, teach them the tools, hand them the keys. It certainly have them set up things like welcome trip campaigns, abandoned cart campaigns, things of that nature. The do it with the crowd, do it with me crowd. Give them pre-built workflows. Allow them the flexibility of adding in a little bit of personalization, but most of the drip campaigns are already built for them. You just simply build it in your headquarters account and you share it into the franchisee account. And then lastly, the do it for me. Sorry about that. Well, you can set up the automation for them. Stand back and let the results flow. I promised I'm not going to make this too much of a constant contact promotion, but we have the ability for you to do that. You have the ability to build automated drip campaigns and share it into some or all franchisee accounts. Give them the flexibility to activate it or alter it, or just do it for them. Just put it in their account, but constantly pushing that local behavior back and giving them the ability, if they ever want to see the KPIs. Data backs us up. 33% of small businesses save over 40 minutes a week just by automation. I know you know this. 87% of franchisees want more AI and automation. It's really not hard to sell them on this. And it's all about making smarter marketing happen on autopilot for everyone, you and the franchisees. Track what works and share it. You want smarter marketing, start with what's working and then share those insights across the whole system. Challenge is most franchisees either don't look at KPIs and reporting, they don't even know what to do with the data. The do-it-yourself crowd, well, they're probably going to be the ones that give them an easy to access dashboard and ability to analyze the results and let them pivot, right? Ideally, build up a system where you can actually monitor the KPIs of them and take it to other franchisees as a model. The do it with me crowd, provide monthly summaries for them, produce the reporting for them, explain to them how the choices they make affect the reporting and maybe suggest things that they could pivot on, right? But having an easy to produce report that they not only can see, but also that's easy for you to generate is a key finding of our report. And lastly, the do it for me, well, just maybe email them some simple reports, right? Because they're not actually doing any of the marketing. They're probably fairly checked out for marketing. Again, the best kind of KPI for this kind of group is more phone calls, more website visits, more whatever it is that the KPI for your business is going to be. They feel it, they're going to give you the ability to run it. 46% of franchisors say that reporting tools are a top necessity and priority. And that gap at the local level is where ROI typically suffers. When franchisees understand the why behind the marketing. They can help make better decisions or make better decisions on their own and stay bought in where we don't run into revolts. Make it easy to replicate that success. One great campaign shouldn't just live in one location. Make sure you're replicating across the whole network. But the challenge is wins don't always get shared or even seen, and it may be hard to repeat. So for the do-it-yourself persona, give them the knowledge from a peer where they can learn from each other. Give them the KPIs and results of, hey, we tried this in Meridian, Mississippi, and we suggest that in Dothan, Alabama, you try this too, right? The do it with me crowd. Take the best campaigns and put them into plug and play templates so that they can take the best of what the franchise system has produced from the franchisee level and they can just run it, right? They go out, maybe with some approval workflows, but you already have the knowledge of what worked, just drop it into their accounts. The do it for me crowds, well, because you're running the whole show, just make sure you're keeping them looped in. Here's why we're doing this. Here's the benefits that we've seen in other locations, and just put on rinse and repeat. So in terms of onboarding, here's what we found in terms of a framework for you. So the first 30 days, all about empowerment. This gives them access to the right tools and then gets that out of the way. So self-serve onboarding, plug and play CRM integrations, start having them play with approved templates. The 60-day mark, they're starting to feel momentum. They're starting to feel the results of the marketing. They've got campaign calendars, automations running, segmentations in place. Again, this is the do it themselves crowd. You don't have to give them as much guidance. They have segmentation in place. They're starting to feel what works. By day 90, it's time to optimize and expand. So they're in their dashboard. They're watching those KPIs. They're watching the performance and repeating what works at their location and also listening to what was working in other locations. They don't need a lot of hand-holding. They need runway. They need runway. This gives them one. With the do it with them crowd, your 30, 60, 90-day plan, it's all about guided setup. Hop onto live onboarding calls, import their data with them, and build that campaign together. Walk through brand guidelines and set up an approval process so that they feel supported, not policed. By 60 days, you're co-building workflows, create a few campaigns side by side, and then some specific location-based touches included in those campaigns. Review the importance of calls to action and how they've performed across other campaigns you've run with them, and start scheduling content having them schedule content using pre-approved templates. At day 90, maybe they're starting to take the lead and turning from a do it for me to a do it myself crowd. They should start to be looking at the results themselves, the KPI data themselves. Maybe they start, you give them a little bit more freedom. Maybe you remove them from a requirement for them to have approval and you move them into the more do it themselves model where they are starting to get marketing out on their own. Still with those brand guidelines, still with templates, still with some oversight, but giving them a little bit more freedom. You keep that relationship strong with monthly check-ins and other kinds of touches where you can monitor and talk about the results they're seeing. For this group, it's all about giving them confidence, making them confidence with the support they need when they need it, and getting them to graduate ideally into doing more on their own. To do it for them, well, set up their accounts, upload the content, get it running. What's really important here is if you're running it themselves, they do have to feel some buy-in, right? If they're curious and they want to see KPIs, those would better be ready, right? But again, they need to feel the localized results. When we look at this persona, can be the most dangerous persona, both from a system standpoint of them gaining too much control and starting to overwhelm your franchise system, or not doing consistent marketing at all. And so with this group, it's the challenge is when I've talked to franchise systems, the way to generally operationalize this group had been just to run campaigns through headquarters. The problem is now we're cutting them out. And when they start to question, and I'm not saying this is you, I'm not saying this is your franchise, but I've seen this happen. They start to question their FA. They start to question how much they're paying into the marketing funds. They start to question how much they need to go pay into a conference or something. And then you start to run into some real questions from them. And so trying to keep it as local as possible, that buy-in. The reality is that I have franchise systems I work with that run the marketing for a franchisee through the franchisee's constant contact account. Why does a franchisee need a constant contact account if they're never going to do it? Because they have the buy-in now. It's their account, it's their contacts, it's their results. And that pays dividends when you give these folks that will never do it themselves some feeling of freedom. So the benefits to this, It's all not only flexible, it's effective. All three personas hit value fast because the approach is tailored to how they think, how they operate, to their persona. Brand control is in check, whether it's with guardrails or guidance or full centralized control. Engagement looks different across personas, but it's optimized to match their style. And when it comes to scale, you've got options: self-driven, co-piloted, or fully centralized. The takeaway is you don't have to choose between control, engagement, and growth. This model delivers all three. So let's take it all home. Let's bring it all together. You got the framework, you got the personas. Let's talk about how to move forward. It's not all just one strategy. It's about a flexible framework, an adaptable framework. When you pair the right tools with the right approach, you unlock both brand growth and localized success. Tiered enablement is critical. Those organizations that have followed this kind of framework see growth because they're mapping the solution to the benefits and challenges of a franchisee. They meet each franchisee where they are, and it goes further faster. You're not the only one experiencing this. As I've said, our study, which I'm going to share the link with you, matched all of this up. This is where all of this came from. So if I've described you and your system, even if you can't say it out loud, you're not alone. This challenge between the I'll do it myself, do it with me, and do it for me franchisee personas, you're not alone in this. And leveraging marketing tools that help you map the solution and the marketing to the different persona is what equals success. So if you want to elevate your marketing, get that link out to you. Download Constant Contact's state of franchise marketing report, where all of this data and information and more came from. Use that to not only plot out your own franchise marketing and franchisee marketing playbook, but also to give you some backup that you're not alone in all of this. I promise not to be too salesy. This is going to be the most salesy thing I said. Constant Contact solves all this pain and more, and we are the only ones that do it in the way that we do it, mapping the solution to the franchisee persona, giving you control when you need it, giving them control when they have proven they are worthy of having the control. We map the solution to the franchisee. It is not a one-size-fits-all solution. Build a 31-year legacy on an easy-to-use tool. What we do is we empower franchisees with the control, with the access, with the visibility at the top that you need, while still giving them that local autonomy if they warrant it based on their persona. Visit our website to learn more and also see additional resources and schedule that demo there. But let's go ahead and get to some questions. Let me go into see what I've got here. Just forgive me, I have to read. The first one's going to be from Caitlin here. All right, Caitlin, sounds like you might be using Constant Contact based on your question. How does a franchisor use Constant Contact for socials? I know our children accounts, that's what we internally call franchisees, child and parent, you'd be the parent's franchisor. Our children accounts can post themselves. However, we can't easily share content with them. Has that changed? Can we share folders and social posts for them? A couple of answers to that question, Caitlin. Firstly, franchise systems that use Constant Contact in terms of social. What we currently offer you is the ability to have visibility. So you can do one of two things. You can either have visibility through your central Constant Contact parent account into what they're posting. You do need to synchronize their social media accounts into your parent account so you can see what they're posting. You could even post on their behalf if you wanted to, and they allowed you to. But we are actually rolling out this year the ability to have, and again, Caitlin, I'm assuming you're a customer based on your question, partner. Right now, you have the ability to build emails and share them into the child as template. Send emails through their account through our central send solution so it becomes localized. Build automated workflows and push them into the account. We just launched the ability to build landing pages and form fills into the child account. Social media is coming next, so we're going to be able to give you the ability to templatize social media posts and push them into their accounts and ideally have them do that. Our professional services team can also help set that up now if you can't wait till the end of the quarter. Next question is from Adam. Let me read it really quickly, Adam. Okay, I had a feeling this kind of question would come up. How would you go about segmenting franchisees into the three personas to do it for me, do it with me, do it myself crowd without alienating them and looking to empower them in the future? He says, would a survey be an easy way to self-identify? Of course, the learning curve can be hardest for some of those to lift. I hear you, Adam. My opinion and what I've seen work is you probably already know what buckets to put them in. Based on if you've seen off the rails content, if you've seen brand guidelines not paid attention to, or if you see that they're not using a tool that you've procured for them, that's going to give you an indicator of those do it for me's. Those that bombard your team with tons of marketing questions and need a lot of support, or even have maybe sometimes not done a great job in getting their marketing out in a quality way. Maybe that's you're going to lump into that do it with me crowd. And you probably know your aces, right? They're probably the top of your leaderboards. They're the ones winning the awards at the conferences, right? So that's going to be clear kind of delineation between the three. Now, what I think your question, Anna, might be more related to is how do I get the buy-in from them so that they don't feel like this group's getting something, this group's not. Well, that comes by sharing with the results, the KPIs, and go, you know what, um, franchisee A, I've heard you say you're really busy, but you don't want headquarters to do all the marketing, and you want to have control of your contacts, right? You want to make sure no one's taking your contacts from you. You want to make sure you push content directly to your website or to your social, to your online store, whatever your case is. Get phone calls to you. Let me show you this. We have a solution for you. Let me show you how this works. And you just give them a demonstration of, I think I work for Constant Contact. I can speak for anybody else's tool. And you show them, I can produce localized marketing where you get to control your contacts, where you get the phone calls, you get the traffic. That's a way to get them to buy into that model. The do it themselves crowd, well, by giving them templates, by giving them guidelines, by having approval workflows, you're hearing them, right? They're likely not going to push back because you're giving them the guidance that they sought in the first place. And then do it with them, you're just empowering them with the tools. Additionally, I have seen franchise systems not run into problems in talking about the personas to franchisees, obviously with a lighter language and a lighter touch than I've used with you today, but they can pretty quickly self-identify where they want to land too. And there's no reason, at least in the constant contact world, if you have somebody who thinks they're a power user, but they are having some issues, saying, you know what, let's move you to this segment because we want to make sure you're getting the most out of your marketing. We move them from the do it themselves to the do it for me. That's the real secret to constant contact is granularity. You can actually determine where those franchisees live and move them at any time, even throw certain solutions out into their experience. So maybe you have some that you don't want to do social as easily. Maybe you have some that you don't want to have landing page availability. You have the ability to granularize that too. Got a question from Dutch. Give me a second here, Dutch, and let me read. Oh, and Caitlin here with Touching Hearts. Thank you so much. Dutch, this is, I think, a little too inside for me to answer broadly. I'll take a stab at it. So when we send out an email to customers with a call to action of buying pizza, what redemption should we consider a success? We're setting up KPIs, what benchmark to use. So I'm always trepidatious about giving an answer to a very specific marketing question in an environment like this without actually reviewing your data, reviewing your audience, getting a deeper dive understanding of both. I will say that on average, the conversion rate per email, on average, you'll see swings up, you'll see swings down. The conversion rate per email is about 2%. So if you kind of use that as a benchmark, if am I seeing 2% conversion on the redemption of this particular one email that I sent out, you're within the guardrails of averages. 2% might seem really small, but for something that has such a low cost of acquisition as email marketing, you don't see an ROI as low as any other vehicle as email marketing. It doesn't take much of that percentage to start to realize a good ROI. But that's the kind of question, the nuanced question that we're built to answer one-on-one with you, consultative with our teams. Next one is coming up from Anne. What is the most common mistakes franchisors make when scaling digital marketing across diverse franchisees? I mean, the number one I already said, Anne, which is forcing a system that's too complex for everybody. I've seen that backfire so many times. And honestly, I've seen some franchise systems get a backlash, a revolt by leveraging a solution that doesn't have the best reputation. It might be super cheap, but they have problems with deliverability. We gained a really massive system, 550 locations several years ago, at IFA in Orlando, because the solution they were using, they had a ton of spam complaints because of the solution they were using was not as reputable as Constant Contact. They joined the Constant Contact as a customer. Let me look at the time. We still have about 5 minutes. Let me see if any more come in. Got another one here from Tony. How do you keep franchisees motivated to stick with the regular campaign cadences across time? Results, Tony, results. I'm not trying to sugarcoat all this, folks. I know that can make it seem easy where I sit. But I have seen the franchise systems that really focus on that local. And I know some of you go, yeah, well, we do localize. If you're the kind of franchise system where contact ownership is really, really a big deal, some is, some aren't, more tend to be where the franchise owner wants to own those contacts. It's their contacts. Um, Empowering them to have control when you feel they have the ability to have control, giving them that control and letting them see and feel the results of the marketing that they are helping produce. There's no better way to get them to understand cadence by if they start to feel it. The do it for me crowd, the ones that are never going to do it, they don't listen, they're tuned out, they don't attend webinars, they're not reading the documentation, they're not attending conference, whatever that model is for you. Always focus on having localized results. Again, using their list. Here's another reason to have them use their list, right? That it's theirs, it's in their account, they own it. Is that if you produce the marketing for them, if you're sending out emails, text messages, social media posts for them, especially with email and text marketing, if you're using their list and they're seeing a lift, they're going to want to grow their list, right? They're going to understand the correlation between a bigger list and getting better results, right? So you start to get that buy-in, you start to move them maybe into the do it with me crowd just by doing that. I'm not seeing any more come in, so I'm going to tell Sydney we're going to start to wrap up now. Hey, I've given you a URL a couple of times, but if you are interested in learning more, we will love to do a demo on how we operationalize all of this and more. I just touched the surface and how Constant Contact can help franchise systems with solutions I bet you didn't know we had. Just scan this code. We'd be overjoyed to have a demo with you, have a discovery discussion. We're very consultative. Want to make sure that we're providing the right solution for your franchise. So with that, I want to thank you for spending your Wednesday with me. And I want a special thank you for Sydney for being such a fantastic host today.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Matthew. And thank you to everyone for joining. It's always great to sit in on these webinars with Matthew. Obviously, very knowledgeable about the subject matter. So I know you guys all probably took away some super helpful tools. And hopefully, if you haven't already, we'll speak to someone at Constant Contact, maybe Matthew. But as I mentioned in the beginning of the webinar, the recording and slide deck will be emailed out probably in about an hour. But if you do have any questions for Matthew or anyone on the Constant Contact team, you can feel free to just respond to the email that I'm going to send, and I will definitely make that connection. Thank you again, Matthew. Thank you to Constant Contact for sponsoring, and I hope everyone has a wonderful rest of your week and a great weekend coming up. Thanks, guys. Have a good one.